Check. Once again, y'all, welcome to New Orleans Essence Fest, celebrating their 30th year this year. Once again, this is the Young Pinstripe Brass Band. Y'all make some noise for them. Y'all move y'all feet a little bit. Get some refreshments right before this panelist start. Once again, Young Pinstripes Brass Band. Thank you for everybody for making it early. Shout out to everybody early in the building. Got the front row seats. Once again, my name is Reggie Black. Going to be monitoring the wheels of steel today before those panelists come out, and after those panelists come out, make sure y'all get a good seat. We're going to be starting very soon. Let's go. Let's go, y'all. Y'all get to y'all feet for the Young Pinstripe Brass Band. Y'all make some noise. Move them feet. Let's go.
Oh yeah, yo, Pinstripes Brass Band. We coming to have a good time. Celebrating Xavier University, y'all. This how we do it down in New Orleans, y'all. And we gonna, hey, 1, 2. Well, everybody say, whoa, come on, whoa. Let me hear you, New Orleans. Whoa, you say it. Whoa, come on. Say what? The Pinstripes got fire. The Pinstripes got fire. We coming with it. The Pinstripes got fire. The Pinstripes got fire. Come on, the Pinstripes got fire. New Orleans got fire. Say what? Hey, New Orleans got fire. The Pinstripes got fire. Come on, we say whoa. You say it. All right. We say whoa. You say it. The Pinstripes got fire. The Pinstripes got fire. You say it. The Pinstripes got fire. Here we go, y'all. One time for the band.
Let's go, everybody. One more time for the Young Pinstripes Brass Band. Getting this event started. Thank you, everybody, for making it on time, making it early. Shout out to Xavier University in the building. Shout out to Essence Festival celebrating 30 years of festival culture. Let's go. We got our panelists walking into the building. We're going to be getting this show started very, very soon. So make sure y'all get something to drink. Make sure y'all get something to eat. Get a good seat. One more time for the Young Pinstripes Brass Band. Y'all make some noise for them. Let's go. Let's go. Welcome to New Orleans if you're not from here. This is how we get our show start. This is how we end our shows. Brass bands all day. Let's go. Alrighty, everybody, I need everybody to start making their way to their seats. We're going to be getting this show started very soon. Once again, make y'all way to the seats. If y'all need some seats, we have a whole nother row of seats on this side over here. If you come up to the front area where I am, or if you walk around the back area, we have another seating area, another standing area, another bar area, food area, so please wander around. Once again, if you're looking for any seats, we got some seats over here on this side so you can still see the stage clearly, see all the panelists clearly. If you're looking for some seats in the back, if you want to stand up, please feel free to do so. Once again, we're going to need everybody to start closing in. We're going to get this panel started very, very soon. Thank you. Alrighty, everybody, we got like about 4 minutes before we get our stream started and everything started. Once again, we got about 4 minutes. If you can, please make your way to your seats or wherever you're going to be standing for this panel discussion. We're going to be getting started in about 4 minutes, so please, if you can, grab that drink, grab that small bite, and make your way to a seating or standing area. Alrighty, everybody, we got about 50 seconds before we start, so we need everybody to make their way to the front of the room. Once again, we got about 45 seconds before we start, so if everybody can start making their way to their standing or seating area, we will greatly appreciate it. We also have some additional seats on this side if you would like to sit down.
Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for being here. Special pleasure to welcome you to this, the home, the future home, actually already the home of the Xavier Ochsner College of Medicine. This is not only a promise fulfilled, but also a realization of two institutions, the intersection of a common devotion to health equity. Xavier has always been engaged in health disparities. Ochsner has been with us in shaping what needs to be a vision for health equity, not only in Louisiana, but around the country. And this medical school is a realization and a fruit of that common mission, the work we've done together. Today we'll showcase two panels. The first entitled, Why Diversity in Medicine Matters. Diversity representation in medicine on all fronts matters to us And this is one reason why the medical school exists, and the impact of Xavier Ochsner Medical School is on that focus. And the second will be demystifying the process of becoming a physician. We want access to talent and to bring talent to the table to become the physicians of tomorrow. So we'll be discussing that in the second panel. Our discussion will focus on demystifying long-standing inequities in our communities. We aim to explore solutions and strategies for fostering a more inclusive and equitable healthcare system. With the establishment of the Xavier Ochsner College of Medicine, XOCOM, get used to that pronunciation, Ochsner and Xavier aim to address the long-standing disparities that have confronted this nation, and that are very long-standing, going back centuries before us. We are committed to fostering a stronger, more equitable health system. This endeavor aligns with our mission to promote a more just and humane society, a mission gifted to Xavier nearly 100 years ago by our founders, St. Catherine Drexel, and her Sisters of the Blessed Sacrament. Our partnership with Ochsner affirms our commitment to advancing health equity, excellence, and to bring forward the talent, the physicians, the biomedical researchers of tomorrow. Through a culture of mentorship and leadership, XOCOM will empower our students to be the agents of change in healthcare, showing an example of how it can be done, not only here in Louisiana, but for the nation as well. And I thank you all for being here to share with us this great work that in years and decades to come, we'll look back and say, this was good work. And we are blessed by having great colleagues here at Xavier and Ochsner at the plow, working together to make this happen. Thank you. And let's listen to now. Is Leo here?
Yes.
Yes. And now I'd like to introduce Leo Swanee, Dr. Leonardo Swanee, Chief Academic Officer at Ochsner, and also whose title is now Dean, Founding Dean of the Xavier Ochsner College of Medicine, to introduce our speakers as well. Thank you.
I have an upper respiratory tract infections, so I'm wearing my mask because I'm going to practice what I preach because I'm a pulmonary critical care doctor. But I have the privilege and the honor to introduce our first moderator. And as soon as I find, here we go. Angela Rye is an award-winning host, social justice advocate, lawyer, communicator, and self-described empower mentor. Her thoughtful yet incisive commentary and real talk about social justice, politics, culture, and history sparks much-needed conversation about the state of America. She is also a partner with Charlemagne the God and executive producer Chris Morrow on iHeartMedia's new political podcast network, Reasoned Choice Media. Rye co-hosts the flagship podcast, Native Land Pod, with Andrew Gillum and Tiffany D. Cross, where they discuss the global impact of politics, the behind the scenes of the cable news industry, and much more. She has also been seen on several programs and outlets from Breakfast Club to The Daily Show, BET, where she has been nominated for multiple NAACP Image Awards, HBO, TV One, CNN, ABC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Recognized for her honest, refreshing commentary and social justice advocacy by our nation's most prominent civil rights organizations such as the National Urban League, the NAACP, the National Action Network. She has also been featured in publications including the New York Times, Vanity Fair, Essence, Washington Post, Glamour, Ebony, and The Undefeated. Angela Rye is a 2019 recipient of an honorary doctorate from the historic HBCU, Wiley College. She is the principal and CEO of Impact Strategies, a political advocacy, social impact, and racial equity firm based out of DC, where she creates strategic partnerships and coalitions with Capitol Hill, third-party organizations, and influencers to ensure societal change. She served as the executive director and general counsel to the Congressional Black Caucus of the 112th Congress. Let's give a big round of applause. We are honored to have you here, Ms. Angela Rye. And I will not take your hand.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just left a Black woman's brunch, jazz brunch, so it felt more like Black church. So we're going to try this one more time. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Oh, that's much better. Let the church say amen. I have to do that because I was told this cannot be political, and you heard my bio, which was a little long, but it will be very difficult to do that, but I am going to obey the rules. So I am very, very happy to be here. It's always a pleasure to be in New Orleans, in particular, Southern Louisiana. And I'm going to take just a brief point of personal privilege to acknowledge St. Catherine Drexel was brought up in Dr. Verrett's remarks. And my family actually donated land to her for a school for children of color in Prairie Bass. And so it is very near and dear to my heart to be with you all and talking about something that's so important, because on that same land, my great-great-grandmother was a medicine woman who utilized herbs and all kinds of things to help heal people. So here we are, still talking about healthcare today and why diversity in medicine matters, the impact of the Xavier Ochsner College of Medicine on the health of our communities. Today, as Essence Fest is getting started, we are gathered to discuss the importance of diversity in medicine when we all know diversity is under attack. That is not political. It is the truth. That sounds like church. That sounds like church. And we'll be talking about the impact of this really, really critical partnership the impact of this partnership on our communities and what it's going to do to address health disparities and foster more inclusive and equitable healthcare systems. We will talk about diversity in the medical field, work to understand the challenges that are centuries years old, and to celebrate the strides we are making towards a more and just humane society, and what we can do to protect those strides. That is also not political. That is also a fact. We have a great lineup, and I'm going to get to introducing them so I don't get in any trouble. First on our panel is Dr. Jack Resnick, Jr., and when I call you, just come on up so we can jump right into the conversation. He is originally from Louisiana, now residing in California, where he serves as chair of the University of California, San Francisco School of Medicine. As they're walking up, you can give him a round of applause. Let it feel warm in this room. Dr. Resnick, hello. Also served as the American Medical Association president from 2022 to 2023. He received his BA in public policy from Brown University and earned his medical degree from the University of California, San Francisco, where he also completed his residency in dermatology. He's testified in Congress for a variety of topics and has received numerous awards. Welcome. Next, we have Dr. Rachel Hardiman, who is a reproductive health equity researcher and tenured professor at University of Minnesota School of Public Health, the founding director of the Center for Anti-Racism Research for Health Equity. She earned her undergraduate degree in chemistry and Spanish, from Xavier University of Louisiana, and received her MPH in Public Health Administration and Public Policy and her PhD in Health Services Research and Policy from the University of Minnesota School of Public Health. Whew. She got letters. Dr. Hardiman's work utilizes racial theory and reproductive frameworks, making her an innovative and critical thinker. She has received various local and national awards, has been highlighted in many news and media outlets, and is active with organizations that seek to achieve health equity. Thank God for you. Dr. Veronica Gillespie Bell, a resident of Louisiana, is the senior site lead for women's services at Ochsner, a board member of Xavier Ochsner College of Medicine, the medical director of quality, the medical director of the Minimally Invasive Center for the Treatment of Uterine Fibroids. I sound like spoken word now. And an associate professor at Ochsner Clinical School. She graduated from Xavier University with a Bachelor of Science in Biology and earned her MD from Meharry Medical College. Later, she completed her Master of Applied Science in Patient Safety and Healthcare Quality at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health and received certification in Diversity and Inclusion, because we will be included, also not political, from Cornell University. She has held various leadership roles within local and national organizations, has received several awards and honors, and has been featured in news publications and local media. Welcome. Dr. William McDade is the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at Accreditation for Graduate Medical Education in Chicago, Illinois, and is an adjunct professor of anesthesiology at Rush Medical College. DEI here does not stand for didn't earn it. Run tell that. He specializes in obstetrical anesthesiology and the treatment of sickle cell disease. Much of his work focuses on increasing opportunities for underrepresented minorities in medical education. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Chemistry from DePaul University, received his PhD in Biophysics and Theoretical Biology and MD from the University of Chicago, the Pritzker School of Medicine, and completed his residency in anesthesiology at Massachusetts General Hospital through Harvard Medical School. Welcome. One more, say one more. All right. Last but not least, we have Dr. Yolanda Lawson. She currently serves as the 124th president of the National Medical Association and has recently joined Healthcare Services Corp. As executive medical director. She founded Madewell OBGYN in Dallas, Texas, and is an associate attending at Baylor University Medical Center. We have a medal on, too. I want to hear about this. With 20 years of clinical practice expertise in women's health and healthcare leadership, she sits on a variety of boards and committees. Her unique combination of business acumen, leadership, and genuine care has propelled her career and transformed opportunities into significant contributions to medicine and her community. She earned her medical degree at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences and later completed her residency at St. John Hospital and Medical Center in Detroit, Michigan. Welcome. Yes. This is a smart people panel. Y'all ready? All right. So the first question I want to bring to you all is what health equity means to each of you. And I don't want you to just talk about it in the broad sense. I want you to contextualize this in where this country is right now. We are under attack on every side, particularly when we talk about equity. When we talk about equity, people like to start things. I won't say anywhere, not anywhere like on Capitol Hill for January 6th, but like in other ways where they fight back in courtrooms, where they fight back on every side to show that equity should not be our birthright, but we all know it is. So talk to me about equity a little bit. All right, I was like, I can do Socratic method. I did go to law school. You all can jump in.
I'm happy to start. First of all, it is an honor to be here and to share space. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. I would say that for me, equity starts with, or the first thing that comes to my mind as a health equity researcher, as a reproductive health equity researcher, is liberation. Because I don't believe we can achieve liberation without health equity. And health equity requires that every single person has exactly what they need to thrive, not just survive. And I also make sure that we understand the difference between equality and equity, right? So equity means everyone's getting what they need according to what they need, whereas with equality, everyone's getting the same thing so that we're all equal. But if we're not all starting at the same starting line, then that's not actually gonna help us. The other word that comes to mind for me when I think of health equity is love. The work that I do and building an anti-racism research center is fueled by love and the idea that we are all human and we all deserve love, and therefore we all deserve health equity.
I love that. I'm gonna just add something to your answer to offer a little bit of a caveat on the question. One of the places where we see a lack of equity the most in healthcare is in the reproductive space, particularly maternal health care for Black women. What are some of the ways that this historic partnership can work to close some of those gaps?
I'm happy to take that one on. Again, thank you everybody for attending. There are a lot of events that are happening right now, and there are a lot of places that you can be, so thank you that you chose to be here and be here with us today. I think for me, to follow up on Dr. Hardiman and some of the things that she mentioned, what health equity means for me, because I do work in the maternal health space, it means no more will I have young Black girls coming to me telling me that they're no longer planning on having children because they're afraid they're going to die in childbirth. That childbirth is the most natural process, and so no woman should experience death trying to give life. And we have the worst outcomes out of any high-income country in the United States, and they're even worse for our Black mothers, for our brown mothers as well. And so for me, health equity means that every family gets to experience a safe, equitable, and dignified birth. Every family experiences that. What we can do from this medical school, again, leaning on Dr. Hardiman and some of her work, we know that when there's concordance of race between the patient and the physician, we have better outcomes. However, in the United States, only about 5% of physicians identify as Black, only 6% identify as Hispanic. If that is the case, where does that leave our Black and our brown mothers? Where does it leave our Black and our brown families? When you walk in a room and nobody looks like you. And so with this medical school, this is a pathway so that we can have a diversified physician workforce, so that there can be a pathway for Black and brown kids to have a way into medical school.
Can I add one more thing to that? Because I think it's important to be clear. Having Black physicians and a diverse workforce is a matter of life or death for our community. So the research that my team has done has shown that when a Black newborn, just born in the hospital, is cared for by a Black physician, they are twice as likely to survive the newborn hospitalization phase. And so when we talk about the need for a diverse workforce, it's not because it's just nice to have or because people will be more satisfied with their care, but it really, it's a matter of life or death.
That is so powerful. And I think on the other side, this is also not political, but on the other side of a Supreme Court ruling last summer that eviscerates, obliterates affirmative action, that is a data point that is needed. Please tell me y'all submitted an amicus brief.
It is written, it has, that research has been written into the
well, let's send it late. They need to know in case they get ready to dismantle it some more. So,
mean,
yes, right? So on this same point, I think that there are other places where we see a lack of equity in healthcare. One thing that's very close and personal to home, my mom was diagnosed with triple-negative breast cancer in the fall. When we went in to see her doctors, I told y'all my great-great-grandma was a medicine woman, so we were looking up natural remedies too. We went in to see her doctors. One of the doctors who operated on her to take the lump out, she had a partial mastectomy, he said to her, well, you're older, so there's only so much we can do. We removed the lump, we removed this lymph node in your underarm. There's not much else we can do, we're so sorry. And I was like, what did you just say? Right? Like, what are you talking about? And I think to your point, right, it's not just about this doctor looking like you. It's about having certain cultural competency to know how to speak to us. They know how to reach us. They don't give up on us. So my mom is completely cancer-free now, not any thanks to him necessarily. But I think that the other thing that we really have to address is it's not just equitable outcomes. We actually need us there because there aren't enough physicians. Talk to me about how this partnership also solves that issue.
I'll go with that one.
I'll follow you.
Let's see. Well, the problem, of course, is that we have to start bringing people into medicine before medical school. So this school is a start. But the fact is that we've got to figure out how we can get to early education, how we can get to high school education, how we can get people prepared to do excellently in college. And that's the point. We have given up, I think, to a large extent, trying to reform the educational process in the country that brings people into higher education in general, so that when they get the opportunity to come to medical school, there are simply not enough. And you probably heard the data that there were more students, African-American students, enrolled in medical school in 1978 than there was in 2000. And the point is that by percentage, we have made no progress over the last 20 years. And we really have to do something about increasing those numbers. And that's why schools like Xavier Ochsner and this forum are so important. I work in the graduate medical education space, where you go after you graduate from medical school in order to prepare to become a physician. And what we see is that when there's an historically black college or medical school that has a residency program, that residency program educates more black physicians, more brown physicians in the case of Hispanic serving institutions, than any of the other institutions in the country in specialty areas. And so we have to be able to get more people into medicine. We have to have more historically oriented medical schools with respect to race and ethnicity that are there to prepare our students so that we can actually bring these specialties, bring the training that was necessary to deliver care in our country.
It's powerful.
Yeah. Well, Bill made the point about just how appalling a job we are doing in terms of having medical students, residents, and a physician workforce that actually looks like the communities that we serve. And the difference between the number of doctors who are from underrepresented and historically marginalized groups and our patients is not okay. So having schools embedded in places that are historically black colleges and universities is an important piece of that, but it's also all of our work across every school in this country, and we can't just leave it to HBCUs to do it. So both things are really, really important. But I look at some of the work that's going on, like Morehouse's Pathways program. You have to reach all the way back to kindergarten and elementary school to put the notion in kids' heads from a variety of different life experiences that this is something they can do and should do and are needed to do. So it's kindergarten, it's high school, it's college, it's what we do in medical school, it's everywhere. And there's a lot of data about race concordant visits, and that was mentioned as well. You know, we're never going to have a world where every visit is race concordant, but there are so many reasons to have people in training programs who come from historically marginalized and minoritized backgrounds. For those of us, you know, there's lived experience, if it's not totally obvious on this stage and in this room, that I don't carry. But I think about what I learned in my own training experience and what I learned from colleagues today, because I've still got a lot to learn from being surrounded by people who've had different lived experiences than I have. And so that is part of what, like when the American Medical Association, which I served as president of in the past, did brief in that case about affirmative action, and it's part of what they brought up in that brief, is that there are a long list of reasons that we have got to have educational institutions that look like all of us, and that is one of them.
Thank
And I'll
you.
just comment a little bit on that piece. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for mentioning, so it's been 80 years and we haven't been able to increase the number of black men in medicine. 80 years. We've sent people to the moon. We're going to the moon for vacations now. It's a problem, right? But the other piece of that, and I tell you this because I live in Texas, right? And we understand there's a policy agenda that went into effect, laws where we can't have, you know, DEI offices, for instance. And so I agree with you wholeheartedly. We've got to start earlier education. The other piece that concerns us is what's going to happen now when you take these offices. These places were places of support for students. They were places of resource for students. I know when I tried to quit medical school, they stopped me, right? It was that office that did that. And so when you think about also from a cultural competency piece, you mentioned that on the workforce, and you're right, outcomes are one thing, but also that trust, that communication. I know the way I'm able to communicate with my people, right? It matters. And then when you look at, I think we would all on this stage agree, all of us know we can't go take a 2-hour course and be culturally competent, right? It's not an endpoint, it's not one course, it's this ongoing education and training. And unfortunately, there are people who grew up in communities that just aren't culturally competent. And so taking these things away, I think, are very harmful. Right now, there are only 6 states that require cultural competency, and only 1 state, New Jersey, requires that in medical education. That's a problem. So these are things we can advocate, actionable things. You can go back to your states, societies, NMA, AMA, others, all of us, we can actually advocate for an actionable thing just with that.
That is so powerful. I'm curious to know, I know that this partnership in particular will do a lot to address some of the barriers we're talking around cultural competency around saving lives, and so many others. I'm curious to know if we know that having people who look like us, where we're reflected, actually saves lives. Why is it such a battle? Why does it require data? Why do we have to prove anything over and over again? And even with the data, it still is not sufficient. What else has to be done? What can this partnership do to ensure that the barriers are actually declining? Some of the pathways to medicine, to practicing medicine, are eliminated.
Well, I think it's some of the same things that we have already said here. Data is one thing, action is another.
It's a complete other.
It's a complete other. And you're right, the data is out there. It's been published in so many studies. And I have to say, there are other HBCUs, just as Dr. Resnick mentioned with the Morehouse, but this is one of the first collaborations that I've seen that is actually action. I know I've been on many stages talking about the need to diversify the physician workforce. This is the first action item that I've been a part that is actually diversifying the physician workforce.
I would just add, so my work as a researcher really starts with the premise that the reason we have not achieved health equity is because we are fighting against 400 years of structural racism in our country that has harmed Black folks. So if we're starting with that understanding, we have to also understand that the issues we're fighting against are deeply entrenched. So I think for me, I would love to see, I love this Xavier Ochsner partnership. It is a long time coming, and the day I read the announcement was a wonderful, amazing moment. And even for me as a Xavier alum, and the experience and the training I received on that campus is invaluable. And also, what would it look like if we had a Xavier Elementary School, a pipeline leading right into that undergrad degree and then into that into this new medical school, right? That's the way that we have to be thinking about how do we change the systems and how do we change the structures in a way that will create a sustainable opportunity.
Well, one of the ways, too, that I think it's always a challenge to be optimistic and hopeful in these very challenging times, and you mentioned in your opening a lot of the challenges we face. But when I see people who are coming into medicine now, that's the one thing that kind of keeps me going, and I see how many of them are actually learning in places where teaching people how to push upstream and actually realize that it is in their lane to fight and do anti-racist work. And those things that drive this 400-year situation that we have been stuck in, and who are getting more and more sophisticated about fighting back on social media and other places. I think about, for all the people who are against health equity work, they have been pretty darn sophisticated in their making arguments these last several years, and social media has just accelerated that. And so, as I see a lot of heroes on this stage and trainees who are out there today, that is something we have to continue to expand on.
One of the things go ahead.
No, I was going to piggyback on the comments here. I first want to just commend the Xavier leadership, the Xavier and Ochsner leadership in this room. I think when we heard the announcement that it was happening, and I've done multiple interviews, I've been in Washington, I've heard Senator Cassidy talk about it and others, and so it's really an accomplishment and really proud to see this level of collaboration, and I agree with you, it's actionable. But actionable, I think about the level, what this means for this city, I think about what it means for this state, and I think about what it means for this country. We all recognize that Xavier is responsible for so many Black or African American healthcare providers in this country. I don't have many friends that didn't touch Xavier, right? Pharmacy, medical school in some capacity. So I am just really proud to see that this has come to a reality and what this means broadly and the action, like you said, this is really gonna come to the community and impact change. And then the demonstration project of what it is too. right? And reversing the harms that we know. The Flexner Report, for those who don't know, that report in 1910 closed many medical schools, right? African American and female medical schools in this country. This is an item, this is the first time I'm seeing something that reverses, right? And we know Morehouse came along, right? We have Drew, but in modern times, right, with the wealth we supposedly have in this country, and see this partnership come to life, this is so meaningful.
So meaningful. I want to just, for a moment, go into the classroom. One of the things that we also understand is this partnership won't just be educating Black students, future Black doctors. There'll also be the allies among us, Dr. Resnick, right? So how do you utilize the four walls of the classroom to help to build into the curriculum cultural competence, to help to build into the curriculum trusting the patient knows their body, right? What are some of the things that are really important in this partnership to ensure that's addressed?
So it starts with the faculty that you have.
Yeah.
So you need to have faculty who understand what the experience is themselves, faculty who do research, to have researchers who bring along the work that they do that are typically focused on problems that impact our community. And so if you don't have people who are thinking about those problems, and that's what we have in most institutions, then you're not going to get solutions. And so I think teaching the medical students is going to be one part of it, producing more medical students, but creating faculty who are driven to solve these sorts of problems and ask these sorts of questions is also going to be central to what the new medical school will bring. And I'll jump back to something that Dr. Lawson just said, the idea that this is something inherent in medical school and medical education really does stem from the Flexner Report. So the Flexner Report, as we just discussed, eliminated some schools, but the idea is it also structured how we will educate in medical school for the next over 100, almost 15 years. And the point is that our 2+2 system, where 2 years of basic science and 2 years of clinical science, that was described in the Flexner Report. In the Flexner Report, in Chapter 14, it describes the medical education of the Negro. And what it says is that you can't depend on white physicians to care for African Americans. And in fact, that there's 60 million at that time whites, 10 million blacks, and blacks represented a source of contagion to the white community. So that we had to create black physicians to care for those black people. That is the definition of, as we've just now heard the phrase, of the relationship between culture and race and the families that we're going to be taking care of later on. It was built into how we structured medical education and how medical schools teach. So how do we change this in the curriculum of medical schools? We have to have people that understand that that's not the way that you have to deliver care, and that when you do deliver care to people who are different than you, that it has to be done in a way that is culturally sensitive and recognizes that the fact that their communities are a little different than yours.
I think about well said, Bill. And I'm glad we're reckoning a little bit with the history of Flexner, because that's an important thing to do, given this huge setback that was. And AMA, with its 176-year history, was involved in that process. I think about what an individual school can do and the importance of making sure that, again, the equity work is not siloed, and that equity lens is broadly infused across the entire work, right? So it can't just be, as someone said, the hours in a cultural competency course. That's important, but that's wholly insufficient, right? So yes, there's the individual patient care piece. I was frantically writing things down as you were asking the question, creating a cadre of future doctors who actually can track and address all of those upstream drivers of health. But it's also infusing future students and future doctors with a sense that they can be advocates, whether it's about police brutality and the downstream consequences of it and health inequities, that they can go out and be advocates in the policy arena, thinking about food deserts and the downstream consequences of food insecurity and how that affects patients who come and see us with diabetes and everything else. Thinking about and questioning bias in our classrooms and how we teach. I'm a dermatologist. The textbooks that I learned from were mostly pictures of white patients. And I'm horrified to even say worse, that when there were black patients pictured in those test books, it was with syphilis and STDs. It's inexcusable. And there are people doing great work who are addressing those things now, but as whether we're thinking about how we equitably treat patients with access to the right therapies, how we teach people and our teaching materials, race-based clinical algorithms, like how we assess kidney disease. There are so many things that students sort of bathed in the right atmosphere in a school that really thinks a lot about equity can make a difference. And the last one I would just want to add is, healthcare is changing a lot right now. We're seeing amazing innovation, whether it's in augmented intelligence or all kinds of other things. And we can make the same mistakes with those new technologies, and we can actually submit inequities, or we can use them to fix some of these problems and advance equity. And so we need a cadre of medical students in the future who actually know how to do that. And I think that's a huge opportunity as well for schools that are really thinking about advancing equity.
I want to piggyback. Thank you for your remarks. I want to piggyback a little bit on Dr. McDade's comments. And so I'm giving you real-time numbers right now. So I was thinking about the opportunities with Xavier and this Ochsner School of Medicine. So right now, only 3.6% of full-time medical school academic faculty are Black. 3.6%, and 0.8% are Black women.
Wow.
So I was thinking about this institution. So number one, embedding equity right into the curriculum. This is an opportunity because it's a new medical school. And I thought about the opportunity for faculty development and to have a medical school with more diverse faculty and more representation. That's an opportunity, right? And then the third opportunity, hold on, I wrote it down, access. So I was just in Washington working on this immunization project. And all these things that we think why people are getting vaccines, this behavioral psychologist tells us, we always talk about, the community needs more education. How often do we hear that? Almost every project we work on, they said, no, it's purely just access. That's all people need. All these other things we had, the cost, all these other things, they were like, no, it's access. So I thought about, that's what this is. It's another opportunity for access in an area where we know known disparities, Cancer Alley, maternal mortality, you rank last in Louisiana, premature deaths. I think Mississippi beats you several categories, but that's it, right? So real opportunity. So just to piggyback off of what both of my colleagues just said.
It's so interesting, Dr. Glaston, because I thought the thing you were going to say wasn't access. I thought it was going to be trust. And I'll never forget, during COVID, of course, during the pandemic, I was moderating a panel with Dr. Harriet Washington, who's the author of Medical Apartheid. I know you all know, but just in case the rest of you all pick it up. But I remember asking this question where I said, why don't we Black folks, Dr. Resnick, we Black folks. This is my ally here. He's been able to say some stuff I couldn't say today, okay? We talked about food deserts, some other things. It's not political, these are facts. So I said, why don't we trust the medical system? And she said, that is the wrong question. The question has to be why the healthcare system has not been trustworthy, right? That's not my bar, that's hers, thank her. But what can this partnership do to ensure that it is creating and undoing, Dr. Hardiman, 400 years of a lack of trust? You brought up syphilis. There was a syphilis experiment. There's no wonder why anything around needles or anything, a trial or research, we don't want nothing to do with that. Can we talk about what can happen in the classroom with these students, with these teachers, that can work to undo some of that lack of trustworthiness? Dr. Hardiman, I want to start with you. You brought up 400 years. Take us into it.
So I think it has to start with, walking in partnership and arm with the community. And by community, I mean the folks who are living alongside this beautiful Xavier campus and this new campus, and really taking into account and hearing and stepping aside and allowing folks who don't typically have the power in these spaces, the folks that are not sitting in this room right now, to have input and even lead the work, right? Thinking about who's on the board and who gets to have a say in how the partnerships are developed is a really important starting point. That's not going to undo 400 years of our history that has contributed to the lack of trustworthiness. But I think it's an important starting point as we forge ahead with a really, I think, new and an innovative initiative.
Thank you.
Well, I contribute. I think there's a callous indifference to a large extent on the part of people who are designed to care for others. Nobody puts on their white coat and says, I'm going to go to work and take care of this person differently than that person on the basis of their skin. But it happens, and we don't stop it.
Yeah.
We don't step in a way today that actually changes the circumstances. There was an interesting study that was published last summer that showed that if there's even one black doctor in your county, it extends your life as an African American. And so and that person didn't have to be your doctor. That person functions from a perspective of demonstrating care to others, people who observe them care for people, advocacy that they provide just by being a black physician in that community, and the care they deliver to the patients who now trust them in ways that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Well, guess what, everyone? This conversation was so good, I ran right through my low timeline. And we were supposed to get to audience questions. Do we still have time for audience questions? Yes, we'll do a few. You need my mic? Okay, thank you.
Questions, anyone?
Such a wonderful and vibrant conversation. I appreciate it so much. My name is Lisa Baptiste, and I am the Executive Director of the 15 White Coats. And part of our mission is to increase the number of underrepresented people getting into medical school, so I'm very excited. My question earlier, we talked about percentages, right? And I know we have a brilliant group of people here, but I'm just interested in a number. If I were to ask you, what would be the number to move the needle 5%? You don't have to give me the exact number, but I would love the audience to know how small that number is to move the needle 5 or 10% for the number of underrepresented Black, Hispanic, or otherwise.
You mean the number that what we would like to see it get to?
Well, I know what we'd like to see it get to, but what is 10% of the overall number of African Americans who are physicians? Like, how many more would we need? So if there are 500 now, that means we'd only need 50. What are we looking at?
So last year, if you look at the number of people who were admitted to medical school, it was about 1,800. So if you want to go, if that's 5% now of medical school, then it would be another 1,800 would be another 5%. So that's the entire country, though, first-year medical school classes.
That's not a lot of people.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katia Woods, and I am here with Black News and Voice, which is the NABJ site. So my question is, we talked a lot about the number and the percentage of Black doctors or lack thereof, but I think part of this also is, as you stated, how we prepare for higher education. And we still have first-time college students. So what is being done to get young Black and brown people interested in science, and then more specifically in medicine? What work is being done? Because it's great to have a medical school, but a lot of these kids, you know, they need to see it. So what work is being done by existing doctors, especially Black and brown doctors? Are you going into junior high schools? Are you going into grade schools? Are you working with, you know, science clubs to say, hey, these are the different paths to medicine? What is being done to get them at a lower level? Because as we know, our competitors are getting their kids ready for college and grade school, not in high school. they're getting them the right curriculums and such.
So I can start if you like. So I'm the National Medical Association. We're divided into 6 geographic regions that covers from the East Coast to the West Coast and U.S. Virgin Islands. So we have regions and we have societies or affiliates that work through. So many, like I'm in Dallas, so we do projects with our school and our districts there. So many come down, you know, a lot of times with education it's local, right? So that's a local engagement thing. Nationally and broadly, it's more of the advocacy piece. Just recently, just last week, I've been working on coordinating all of the major Black organizations, National Bar Association, National Nurses, Pharmacists. All of us had a little bit of the same issue after the Supreme Court's decision last year. And what was that going to do to the diversity of the future workforce, right? So we all went to Washington, D.C. We met with the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. We met with the White House, and we have an agenda. It was around education, economic empowerment, healthcare disparities, and legal justice. So we are working from a broad policy perspective, and then through an organization method, we work at the local level. Some of these, like you said, you need to be able to see doctors. This year at our annual meeting, we have a STEM cap. So we're doing things kind of at the local granular while also working at the policy level.
And just to speak about the things that Xavier and Ochsner have done, as it was mentioned, I attended Xavier for undergrad. Why did I attend Xavier? Xavier sent a letter to my house when I was in high school that said, hey, we have a program called SOAR. And I knew I was interested. Everybody went to SOAR. Yeah, I knew I was interested in going to medicine. But that letter that came to my house that told me about this program is what got me to Xavier. And then when I got to Xavier, I realized if you lived in New Orleans, there were some programs before that, ChemStar, BioStar. And so Xavier has a long history of reaching out to high school students and also junior high students and showing a pathway to science in general, but also into medicine. And then at Ochsner, and I'm looking at Dr. Webb to teach because she runs the program, but we have a program where we go into different elementary schools that are and high schools that are here in New Orleans to spend time with them to, again, show them that pathway. Representation is so important. It is so important. And so to be able to show them Black and brown physicians that look like them.
In addition to multiplying these programs by 1,000 and funding them.
Yes.
And in addition to the moral and ethical imperative that every one of the million physicians out there has, like, we see a lot of patients, and sometimes those patients are children, and sometimes they're adults who have kids in the office with them. And talking to those kids when they're in our office, huge missed opportunity. But we also have to get some things out of the way that we need in order to move forward. So admissions, yes, the Supreme Court decision has been a huge barrier, but there are a lot of stupid things we do in admissions that a lot of schools are doing to change, just focusing too much on test scores when you've got kids who are wealthy who can afford to take prep courses, things about the way we evaluate people in medical school that we're realizing are biased. So there are all those things along that pathway that we also have to do to get out of our own way to accomplish this.
And to be clear, we're seeing all of those things being attacked and reversed right now, right? And so even in states, I live in Minnesota where we have been, sort of often leading the charge and as a progressive and liberal space, and we are watching many of the same tactics happening across the country slowly and systematically dismantle those opportunities.
It's no accident. I mean, there are think tanks that are driving this, the Cato Institute, ALEC, the Center for Equal Rights. I mean, there's all of these, the Heritage Foundation, there are all these groups that spend days and nights, fellowships, offer rewards even to legislators who produce legislation that is anti-DEI, anti-progress in terms of trying to eliminate health disparities.
Yeah.
Hi everyone. I am Dr. Rhonda Dickey. I'm a pediatrician. I am a Xavier grad and I'm a Harry grad. And I want to know what are y'all doing about, y'all kind of touched on it a little bit just a minute ago, but what are y'all doing about, one, keeping once you get the students in Xavier and then in the medical school, keeping them in the medical school. Second, keeping them in primary care. You're losing so many primary care physicians because it's difficult. I've had my own practice. I've worked at community centers. I'm at a community clinic in the East right now. And it's very difficult in this day and age with reimbursement and all that to keep practices open. I think I might be one of the, no, I'm not one of the last, but a few of my line sisters, we all had solo practices. They are now gone because we couldn't afford to do it. So what are we doing, one, for trying to keep medical students in primary care, which is really needed? And two, what are we doing about the cost of medical school in itself? Thank you.
That was a lot, Doctor.
It was.
4 questions. we each got a question up here.
You go first. Debt, medical debt, right? So we got to fix this. It's not going to be inexpensive for institutions to do the work of training people, but we have to alleviate student debt because that affects people's career choices. It affects their ability, all geographic choices about where they're going to go, what communities they feel like they can practice in. And yeah, we got to not be afraid of talking about, here's the former AMA president and me, but like, we got to not be afraid to talk about people have to be paid fairly for their work, so that and that has to include wherever they decide to go work. And if they're a pediatrician, you know, I have kids in tech in my community straight out of college as coders who are making 3x what the pediatricians in my community are making, and we have to not be embarrassed to talk about that. So I thank you for your service as a pediatrician. Thank you for sticking with it. But those are important things.
So your question was, what are we doing? I can speak to what we should do. And so both of your questions, the first one around keeping, getting folks to stay in medical school and like, what does that look like? I was part of a study about probably 7 or 8 years ago now, where we followed nearly 5,000 medical students across, and we were collecting data about them on a variety of things across their entire medical school and residency training. And one of the things we saw with the Black and Brown students in our study was that when they were in places and training and schools where where their racial identity felt safe and they didn't feel under attack and had a strong self-concept of who they were and where they came from, they were more likely to thrive and do well and go into their residency programs of choice, right? So creating spaces like Xavier Ochsner Partnership, right, offer as an important opportunity for that. And I would love to see more of that, right? We need more of that. It doesn't necessarily mean we need more HBCUs, because we also need to be transforming the current institutions that exist to make sure that they are safe for everyone to thrive in. The second part of your question, I just actually lost my thought there, so I'm going to come back to it. Sorry.
Well, the problem is huge. I think there's a gigantic financial deficit that exists in the country, the wealth gap between blacks and whites that's historically been there, that's been perpetrated by so many schemes that have denied African Americans their due in terms of labor, in terms of housing. It's a wealth gap that stops people from being successful to a large extent. What can we do in education? I think we have to look at ways in keeping tuition down in relationships like Ochsner Xavier. We have to, in order to have this medical school work, we have to have medical students who are able to afford it, who are able to thrive and do it. Radical thinking has to be involved in how we actually change that in order to get people going there. And I think we have to think a little bit about how we structure funding for medical education, both graduate medical education as well as undergraduate medical education. So I think that's an important factor. And then I think we also have to figure out, in the National Medical Association, your leadership, Dr. Lawson, is so important in ensuring that when physicians are out there in practice, that they are able to thrive. We know that there's so many physicians who have become victims of their environment and they're attacked, and sometimes they're forced off of medical staffs, and it happens in residencies, and it happens in medical school. We just published a paper on medical students who feel that they've been the victims of racism or discrimination, and how their attrition is higher in medical school. So providing environments where people feel safe to study is extraordinarily important.
So I just remembered the other point I was going to make, because it aligns with what you just said, and it's again what I think we should do, or what I dream is possible, which is I refer to it as sort of medical school reparations, right? So there should be access to medical school should not be a financial barrier. So if someone from a historically marginalized community wants to be able to go to medical school and then serve as a primary care physician, a family medicine doc, or a pediatrician, right? They should be able to do that and graduate debt-free and not have to think about going into a higher paid or a better paid specialty in order to pay back the immense cost of that medical training.
Can I add one thing to the list, which is states that are already dealing with a lot of poverty and with huge inequities in health outcomes need to, and sorry, I'm going political since you can't, needs to have their state governments not interfere in healthcare decision-making that should be between patients and doctors.
Absolutely.
We are seeing, in this year's match, we are seeing across multiple specialties students more reluctant to train and less likely to apply in those states because they don't want to risk going to jail for taking care of their patients. So just had to add that to the list.
Thank you for adding that.
And then I just wanted to comment a little bit around your last question, and thinking of this concept around healthcare consolidation and the impact that that's having on physicians and their practice choices and where they work. Like you, I also had a solo private practice, the independent practice that I also had to close. But from my vantage point, it is much more complex than just reduced reimbursements. There are so many things happening above the level of a doctor who is practicing clinically. And when you are face-to-face, taking care of patients every day, and many times when you're in an independent practice, you can't have the attorneys and the MBAs and all those folks circling around you and supporting you through legislation and policy and technology innovations that are impacting. So one of the things we're going to be addressing this summer at our NMA meeting is this issue around big medicine and the corporatization and consolidation of healthcare, and also the impacts that technology and digital health and AI are having on the healthcare workforce. So we'd love to sit and talk with you. I won't take much more time here, and we'll talk about the attrition offline too.
All right, everyone, we have time for one more quick question.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Taylor Collins. I am currently applying to med school. I submitted my application last week. And I also currently work as a clinical trial coordinator at LSU's Health Sciences Center. And my question is, as I'm applying for schools and choosing schools, how do I best navigate finding spaces that are best for me, and which school would be best for my growth as developing me as a future physician? Thank you.
You have that one.
That's a great question. The comment that I was going to make in response to the last question, I think also applies. Culture, the culture of the school, I think is so incredibly important. I had the wonderful fortune of attending Xavier for undergrad and attending Meharry for medical school, as my colleague back there just said. I knew that both of those schools were invested in me and invested in me being successful. It didn't matter what I came in with. I wasn't always the best student. I didn't always have straight A's, but I knew that I was going to graduate and I was going to be well trained and I was going to be able to be an excellent physician. But it was the culture of that school. It was the culture, especially at Meharry, when I was like, I can just go teach. This does not have to be what when I thought I was going to quit. They did not allow me to quit. And so it is the culture of the school that provides the support that you need to get through. It is one thing to have that vision of what you want to be when you finish. It is a whole nother thing to go through the process. And it is the culture of those two schools that I think that led to my success, that then helped prepare me for other situations that I've had in residency or post-residency that may not have been as supportive, when I was able to be very strong to understand, withstand, or go through those situations. So I really am hoping that as we build our new medical school, that it is going to take that secret sauce that is at Xavier, that I also feel is at Meharry, and build that into our medical school. And so that's what I would tell you to look for.
As President Ferret said, you've got to follow your mission. The school was founded to educate African Americans. And so you have to imagine that it has to be right in the fabric of the institution to choose an institution to go to. It has to be the mission of that school to eliminate health disparities. If you don't go to a medical school where that's part of their mission, then I'd look at a different medical school.
Thank you all so much to Doctors Lawson, McDade, Gillespie, Bell, Hardiman, and my new favorite accomplice, Dr. Resnick. Give it up for our panel. DJ, give us some music. It's Essence Fest weekend. We're grateful.
Alrighty, everybody. Our next panel is going to be starting in about 3 minutes. Once again, our next panel is going to be starting in about 3 minutes. It's called Demystifying the Process of Becoming a Doctor. Once again, in about 3 minutes, we're going to be getting started again. Thank you for all of the panelists that joined this first round. Once again, 3 minutes, we're going to be getting started. So make y'all wait back to y'all seats once y'all grab a quick refreshment so we can get demystifying the process of becoming a doctor.
If you feel insignificant, you better think again. Better wake up, because you're part of something way bigger. You're part of something way bigger. Not just a speck in the universe, not just some words in the Bible verse. You are the living word. You're part of something way bigger. Bigger than you, bigger than we, bigger than the picture they framed us to see. But now we see it, and it ain't no secret, no. Understand the truth about that question in your soul. Look up, don't look down, then watch the answers unfold. Life is your birthright, they hit that in a fine print. Take the pen and rewrite it. Step out your estimate, step in your essence, and know that you're excellent. Rise, Spirit is teaching. No, I'm not just preaching, I'm taking my own advice. Let mama let you know, mama's still trying. I can't get no days off, I don't get no days off. Truly, I'm feeling it, I had to say that thing twice. Trying to be a good wife, still really hard, I can't lie. But I promised you I would fight, so I fight. If you're feeling frustrated, you're sinking, I'm jumping in. Forgiveness is key, because we're fighting something way bigger. You never lose, we are winners. I'll be the root, you be the tree. That's on the fruit that was given to me. Legacy, we're part of something way bigger, way bigger, way bigger.
Alrighty, y'all, about 1 minute and we're going to be getting that next panel started. Once again, about 1 minute, we're going to be getting that next panel started. Please make y'all way back to y'all seats. We're going to have some more time for photos after this next panel discussion called Demystifying the Process of Becoming a Doctor. Once again, in about 1 minute, we're going to be getting our next panel started. Thank you.
Living my life 7 in the morning. When they wake, you gotta be ghost. Let me tell you something. I'm about to overflow. Boy, you don't know my bed. Oh, tonight you might find out. Open up my window. Once you're in this, don't get hot. I am a river, and this river's slowing down. Know where you are now. Across my water till you drown. I feel it, baby. Tell me what's so I know how. I've been up, baby, so you could take me home. I waited up all night. Take me apart. And I get high all night, all night, all night.
Working for the Mardi Gras Carnival in New Orleans, I'm outside. Everybody talking about, boy, you're so cold. It's only one Super Sunday, it ain't the Super Bowl. I was sewing, hustling, working for the Mardi Gras Carnival in New Orleans, I'm outside. Everybody talking about, boy, you're so cold. It's only one Super Sunday, it ain't the Super Bowl. Mardi Gras, walking in the street like I run the town. Don't blow your horn at me to move, drive around. We outside. I ain't tell him he ain't have enough on. I told the engine he look naked. I'm a whole park legend. We outside. I was making cars stop at the D shop. At the liquor store, I tell him who could go. We outside. While he walk across the city, we gon' meet them all. Them other engines, they be hopping out of U-Haul. You a U-Haul engine, U-Haul engine. And I'm an old school engine walking across the city. You a U-Haul engine. And I'm an old school engine walking across the city.
Alrighty, everybody, I need everybody to start making their way back to the seats so we can get this next panel discussion started. Once again, I need everybody to start making their way back to their seats, please, so we can get this next panel discussion started. Next panel that's going to be coming up is called Demystifying the Process of Becoming a Doctor. Once again, we're about to get this next panel started, so if everybody can please make their way back to their seats, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you once again for being here, supporting Xavier University Medical School here in Vincent Tower, and all of our people here out of town for Essence Festival weekend.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to get our second panel started. My name is Dr. Courtney Washington. I am a proud Xavierite, XU. I'm currently the medical analyst for WDSU and the owner of Florida Lee Primary Care Clinic and Aesthetics. I'm excited to be leading our conversation entitled Demystifying the Process of Becoming a Physician. This panel will focus on the challenges presenting when entering the medical field through highlighting our panelists' experiences and discussing helpful resources. Before we dive in, I'll start off by introducing our wonderful panelists. Our first panelist is Dr. Sawani. He is the founding dean of Xavier Ochsner College of Medicine, chief academic officer and executive vice president at Ochsner Health. He is also a professor of medicine at the University of Queensland School of Medicine. Additionally, Dr. Sawani oversees Ochsner's continued academic partnership with the University of Queensland Ochsner Medical School, Xavier University of Louisiana, LSU Health Science Center in Shreveport, and Loyola University of New Orleans. He graduated from Loyola University in New Orleans with a Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences and earned his Doctor of Medicine degree at Louisiana State University School of Medicine in New Orleans. Dr. Maurice Scholes is a resident of New Orleans. Welcome, Dr. Scholes. Yes. He serves as a pediatric PM&R attending at Ochsner Health. He is the 2023-2024 board chair for the National Medical Association. Dr. Scholes specializes in caring for children with physical disabilities, managing spasticity and movement disorders, and addressing physical function issues resulting from genetic disorders, brain injury, spinal cord injury, limb deficiencies, spinal bifida, muscular dystrophy, and cerebral palsy. Dr. Scholes received both his MD and PhD from Harvard's Medical School in 1998. He completed his internship and residency at the University of Texas Health Science Center in San Antonio and finished his fellowship in pediatric rehabilitation at the Rehabilitation Institute of Chicago in 2002. Round of applause for Dr. Scholes. Returning for our second panel is Dr. Veronica Gillespie-Bell. Dr. Gillespie-Bell is the Senior Site Lead for Women's Services at Ochsner, a board member of the Xavier Ochsner College of Medicine, the Medical Director of Quality, the Medical Director of Minimally Invasive Cancer for the Treatment of Uterine Fibroids, and an Associate Professor at Ochsner Clinical School. She graduated from Xavier University of Louisiana with a Bachelor of Science in Biology and earned her MD from Meharry Medical College. Later, she completed her Master's of Applied Science in Patient Safety and Healthcare Quality at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health and received her certification in Diversity and Inclusion from Cornell University. She has held various leadership roles within the local and national organizations and has received several awards and honors, and has been featured in news publications and local media. Next, welcome Dr. Brian Pettiford. Dr. Pettiford is a surgical oncologist with a focus in thoracic surgery at Ochsner MD Anderson Cancer Center. He is a native of Tifton, Georgia, and an honors graduate of Morehouse College, where he obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in biology. He earned a Doctor of Medicine degree from the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine, where he continued his general surgery and cardiothoracic surgery training. During surgical residency, Dr. Pettiford was elected to Alpha Omega Alpha Honor Society. He began his cardiothoracic surgery clinical practice in Massachusetts in 2003 and served as clinical assistant professor of surgery at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center from 2005 to 2009. Dr. Pettiford is certified by the American Board of Thoracic Surgery. He is also a fellow of the American College of Surgeons and holds memberships in the Society of Thoracic Surgeons, the Southern Thoracic Surgical Society, and the Eastern Cardiothoracic Surgical Society. This is a wonderful panel. So to get our conversation started, I'd like to ask each one of you, when you knew you wanted to pursue a career in medicine, specifically becoming a physician? We'll start with Dr. Scholes.
So first of all, as proud as I am of being an MD-PH from Harvard, I'm more proud to be a Southern University Jaguar undergrad, where my fellow Jaguars out there, HBCU born and bred. I knew I wanted to be a doctor since I was 6. I don't know where it came from. I'm the first one in my family. We didn't see a regular physician growing up. We went to the clinic, and whoever was there, they took care of us. We almost got put out of the dental clinic because my sister was so bad. But whoever implanted that seed, thank you. And I was just ignorant enough about the process not to be scared enough too scared to do it.
I think for me, it was 10th grade. I decided, English is really easy, and I like to write, but it's super easy. But science, I have to think a little bit. I have to think a little bit about that. It challenges me a little bit more. And I was like, maybe I could be a physician, but I don't know. You have to dissect animals. I don't know if I can do that. And so 10th grade anatomy, we had to dissect an animal, and it turned out I absolutely loved it. So that was when I decided I wanted to be a physician. And then when I was at Xavier, my junior year of college, I was home for Christmas break and had to go see my OBGYN for a regular checkup. As I mentioned, I'm from Mississippi, small town. My OBGYN said, "Oh, I hear you want to be a doctor. What kind of doctor do you want to be?" And I said, "Oh, I want to be a pediatrician because I love kids." And he's like, "Yeah, you don't love them when they're vomiting on you and they're crying. You just want to be a pediatrician because you've never seen any other doctor." And I was like, that's kind of true. He said, "Come back tonight at 5:30. We're going to do a C-section." So he treated me like a third-year medical student for the 2.5 weeks that I was with him. And this is why I said earlier, representation matters, because that is what made me decide I wanted to be an OBGYN, was spending that time with him.
Good afternoon. For me, it was, I think I was around 8 years old. It was actually born out of tragedy. My maternal grandmother passed away from a heart attack.
it was also at the same time that my parents were going through a pretty nasty divorce. My mother was a nurse at a surgical ward, and my father was an auto mechanic, so he could fix anything with his hands. And so I always looked up to him for that. And I think that planted the seed. And I was able, through God's grace, to cultivate that seed by participating in summer programs, which I think are needed. Things like Upward Bound, the SEAT program over in Georgia, and the UMARC program when I was in college. And I think it's absolutely important for students, be it high school students or students in college, to participate in programs like that. Often in reflection, and when I see my father, I always tell him, look, man, you are an auto mechanic, I'm a body mechanic. And so that's my perspective.
And I probably decided last of the group. You know, growing up in an immigrant family, I didn't think I could be a doctor. I didn't think those professions were for me, for being a Cuban American. And it wasn't until I got to college. I was always very good in science, very good in school. It wasn't until I got to college and I realized, why not? You know, I'm getting the same grades. I'm doing just as well as everybody else. I'm looking around the other students and I'm going, I can do this. And I switched. I actually went to college as a history major, switched over to pre-med, and then created that career to becoming a physician. And so that's why this panel is so important to me, because I think it is about letting kids know that you can do this, and why not you?
Wonderful. Wonderful. Same. So I really appreciate the input, and its representation is very important. And speaking to a lot of local high schoolers and telling them about the wonders of being a doctor, it's very kind of disheartening. Sometimes I'm the first Black female physician that they've ever encountered, and they actually get motivated to actually consider a career in medicine. So I love this panel. Our next question is going to be about your obstacles that you faced while pursuing a career in medicine. Dr. Gillespie Bell, I'd like to start with you, followed by Dr. Pettiford.
Obstacles. It's hard. Medical school is hard. It was definitely a transition going from high school, even though I took all these advanced placement classes and all of that, going from high school to college to medical school, and the amount of information that you have to read and you have to maintain, and also having the maturity to say no to some of the social things that, you know, at that age that you want to be involved with. And so just learning how to study and learning how to read and learning confidence. Confidence was I think a big thing that I learned throughout the medical school process. So those were some of the biggest obstacles for me.
Yes, I totally agree with Dr. Gillespie Bell. It is not easy. And going all the way back, I grew up in a small town in southern Georgia where the railroad tracks literally kind of they were the line of demarcation. I graduated high school in 1988. And at an integrated high school, we had a black and a white homecoming queen. I did not see a black doctor. That was foreign to me. The only black doctor I saw at the time was Denzel Washington and Alfred Woodard on St. Elsewhere on TV, okay? But leaving that environment and going to Morehouse College, where everyone from the college president to the custodian looked like me, was empowering. But you move to the next level and you find that you're often the only spot in the room. You know, I was the third African-American to graduate from the surgery department. I was the first to finish the cardiothoracic surgery program. So on the one hand, you kind of celebrate that you're in rarefied air, but it is often lonely. But with all of that, you have to realize that there were some people, unbeknownst to you, there were some old ladies who were praying for you, okay? And
they were.
and still are.
And still are.
So that said, you can't quit. No matter how hard it is, people sacrificed for you to be where you are. You have to keep going.
Next, Dr. Swanee.
It's hard to follow that. Look, I think you're going to face adversity, and there's adversity in life, and then there's adversity to becoming a physician, and there's adversity being a physician. It's true that it's not easy to be a physician or to become a physician, but it's also very, very true that we need you. For those who are parents who've got children that you're thinking you may want them to become physicians, or for those that are in the audience that are thinking of becoming a physician, we need you, society needs you, America needs you. The truth is, we're extremely short of physicians. If you look at the projected shortages, up to 86,000 physicians short over the next decade. Not to mention, there's about 50,000 physician shortage right now. And if you try to get an appointment with a doctor, we know it, right? It's hard to get an appointment with a doctor. And then so the country needs you, but if you come from a diverse or minority background, you are really needed. You heard the panel before us about the importance of diversity in medicine. Lives are at stake. And the statistics remain the statistics, that blacks and African Americans make up 14% of the US population, but only 5.7% of the doctors. Hispanics, we make up 19% of the population, but only 6.9% of the doctors. So while it is tough, while there are a lot of challenges, I love what the panel said. There's a lot of people rooting for you. You don't have to go to this alone, and that's exactly what XOCOM is core to its mission, to provide that environment for you to be able to be successful.
It's interesting, everybody's talking about their academic challenges. That really wasn't my challenge in med school. My challenge was I was just a country boy that didn't know nothing. And you don't know what you don't know, and I'll give you a quick story. At the beginning of med school, you have to go and buy all your medical supplies and your equipment. And they have all these vendors sitting there at these tables selling different things. And the Littman stethoscope is like the Porsche Cayenne stethoscope. It's the good one. And the Tycos stethoscope was the one that's the Hyundai. Well, if you ain't never had a car before, you don't know the difference between the Tycos and the Littman. So I bought the Tycos stethoscope and said, ha, ha, ha. I done saved some money on y'all. Well, I got to my clinical rotations and couldn't hear nothing. That stethoscope was trash, and I couldn't understand nothing. And they were like, do you hear that split, whatever? And I was like, I don't hear nothing. So I ended up having to go back and buy a second stethoscope. So I say the hardest thing for me in med school was like, I didn't know, and my ignorance made me have to buy 2 stethoscopes rather than 1.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Especially being the first physician in my family. Who can you consult, right?
Who was going to tell you the answer to that? I was like, what should I buy? I was like, this one's cheaper.
Exactly. So the next question would be, since we're talking about difficulties in pursuing a career in medicine, I'm just curious to know what you would tell young students, especially those of color and those from underserved communities, about the process to becoming a physician. We know that it takes pressure to make diamonds, but increased pressure leads to burst pipes. So let's start with Dr. Scholes. I'm interested to know what you have to say, since you work very, very closely with children.
So I am the one that brings the sun. I curate joy. I have the honor of living my ancestors' wildest dreams and the dreams I set for myself. There's nothing more empowering than walking in a path that you know is for you. So however hard it is, it would actually be harder for me to be an accountant. However hard it is, it would be harder for me to bow to my daddy's wishes. He's the only person in the world that was disappointed I went to med school. He's an engineer. Anybody here raised by engineers knows how they are. And he wanted me to be an engineer. So what if that medicine don't work out and people just ain't good? So when I talk to younger people, and God, I can't believe I'm saying young people. I'm on the old people now. When I talk to young people, thank you, Justin. I heard that. I say that follow your heart, follow your faith, and let your village be the wind beneath your wings. It doesn't matter how hard it was. You're going to sail through because you're where you're supposed to be. No matter how many people tell you what you look like you should do, you in your heart know what you feel like and are capable of doing. And you have to answer that.
I don't really think I can say it much better than that. I think when I talk to younger students, whether they're medical students that are wanting to go into OBGYN specifically, or if I'm talking to elementary students, high school students, I just tell them, look at me. There is not anything special about me that I made it here, except for I am walking in my purpose, and this is where I am supposed to be. And faith is very important to me, and I do believe that what God has for you, He has for you. And so if that is His intent and His plan, that you will make it through. And then I also have to keep, there's another scripture that I keep to remind myself too, and I try to share that as well, that all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to His purpose, so that when you do stumble and fall, that is part of your story. And you will stumble, you will fall, but you will get up and you will succeed at the end.
I would tell young people, compartmentalize, but keep your eyes on the prize. The point is that you have to crawl before you walk. You want to become a doctor? Well, first of all, you need to get a college degree. You have to do well in college. Okay? It's just that simple. You want to get into medical school? You need to take the MCAT. MCAT tests require preparation. So compartmentalize it. It's a step-by-step process. Keeping your eyes on the prize, but realize this is not going to happen overnight. It's going to take time. And you have to also convey that to your family. I remember explaining to my father the process, how long it would take for me to become a cardiothoracic surgeon. We were actually remodeling a house, and my father's very practical, and he looked at me, he looked down, he looked at me, he said, you know what, boy, you're a damn fool. When he looked at how long it would take for me to become a cardiothoracic surgeon. They were under the impression that day one, when I graduated medical school, I was going to have a six-figure salary. So you have to level set expectations for yourself and for your family. And as I mentioned previously, don't quit. It's going to be hard, but don't quit. And when you think about quitting, when it looks like there are storms about you, since my esteemed colleague here is drawing upon the Bible, I grew up in the 70s listening to 8-track tapes. There was an artist called James Cleveland in the Mississippi Mass Choir. Peace be still. So peace be still. It'll all work out.
All great advice, and you know, look, I listened to that and said passion, purpose, perseverance. And besides what I've already said, besides I tell young people, we need you. The other thing I tell them is that just if you're wired that way, if your purpose is caring for others, if your purpose is to be there when someone's the most vulnerable and you can make a difference in their life, in their family's life, if that's what drives you, go to medicine. Because there's nothing greater, and I tell this story to medical students and I tell this story to pre-meds, that still to this day, there's no better feeling than driving home at 3 a.m. in the morning. I've been up all day, probably didn't sleep well the previous night. I had a critically ill patient in the ICU. I stayed till 3 a.m. to stabilize that patient, and now they're stable. I was able to tell their family, okay, they're stable, and I'm driving home, and I'm tired. But there's no better feeling than that drive home, that you made a difference in someone's life. And if that's what drives you, don't let all the other obstacles and all the other things get in your way. And we'll be there for you and help you through this, but medicine's right for you.
You know, I love that point that he's making here about what it feels like to drive home at 3 a.m. And I'm going to add to it in that the people we're talking to in this room that are first-generation doctors coming from underrepresented, minoritized backgrounds, you're bilingual. What does that mean? I speak fluent physician. I speak pretty good cardiothoracic surgeon. I speak conversant OB-GYN. I speak fluent pediatrician. I speak great neurosurgeon. But I also speak regular old black people. And so part of my joy is I talk about very, very complicated concepts on how your central nervous system is wired to control the rest of your entire body and how that changes as you grow and develop. That's what I do as a peds rehab doctor. But I can talk to my colleagues about that, and I can talk to regular folks about that maybe failed high school biology twice. That is the thing that makes that drive home special, because you know if you weren't there, somebody might have talked to them, but they wouldn't have heard nothing.
I echo the same sentiment when we talk about informed consent. It's about explaining the risk, benefits, alternatives, but if the person doesn't understand what you're saying, then you're not really conveying them, and therefore you can't really get consent. And being able to decode and translate and make it applicable, especially in New Orleans, because we have our idioms. What does that mean? You know, palliative, those words that we use amongst each other, it's a different language. So I definitely echo the same sentiments. And medical school is difficult, but it is doable. Just because you fail one test doesn't mean that you're a failure at life. It may take you to get into medical school to fail that first test, but you can try again, so do it. But if you never apply and you don't consider yourself worthy of going, then you're already self-sabotaging. So do it. We all did it, and we survived. So our next question is about resources and community. So what resources can we offer to our community and the parents? Also, in your experience, what resources do you think would be feasible and most helpful for the community? I'll start with Dr. Sawani and then followed by Dr. Pettiford, as I know you both work closely with the community and community health partners.
Well, I think it's, the first panel covered a lot of this too. We've got to get down to elementary school. Becoming a physician starts with science and math. I mean, and those skills that you really start learning in 5th grade and beyond. And so programs, I'm looking at Dr. Webb to teach here because she leads that for Ochsner, the Optimist program, which is a program where physicians of color go into elementary schools, as far down as elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, to talk to students about you can be a doctor, you can be a physician. And there are physicians that look like you, and there are physicians that share a common journey with you. And I think those types of partners, here in New Orleans, there's STEM NOLA, there's our charter schools. It's about getting involved because it really, we have to increase the pool, and increasing the pool really starts in those elementary years.
I totally agree. I think that on an individual basis, it's imperative that we allow shadowing opportunities. We be visible and allow students to come in, interested students, to see what we do on a daily basis. I think that partnering with church, civic, and fraternal organizations, the Divine Nine, Prince Hall Freemasons, local organizations such as Sons of a Saint, the Silverbacks, Zulu, leverage the relationships that we have with those organizations to make a tangible and a palpable impact and influence on students. And a lot of it is all about how you carry yourself. Sometimes I go to the barbershop, got to go and get a fade every now and then. I go to the barbershop, I'm in scrubs. I've had a couple of young men approach me and say, "Are you a doctor?" And they are completely blown away that they're talking to a doctor who looks like them. And my tone, my demeanor, as I'm approached by them, can have either a positive or negative impact on that individual. So it's all about how you carry yourself amongst your peers.
And I think it's just really piggybacking on what Dr. Pettiford has said. I've already explained my journey, and that one doctor taking the time to just say, "Hey, I heard you're interested, and let me just show you what I do." I wasn't thinking anything about OBGYN at all, but him just taking the time. And it wasn't just taking the time in that moment and then allowing me to be exposed to OBGYN, it was maintaining that connection. and becoming a mentor to me. And so each of us that are in the room as physicians, I think we each have the ability and the responsibility to demonstrate in our actions, in our everyday life, who we are as physicians, but also taking someone under our wing. And it may be as simple as having them come and shadow you. It may be doing more as far as having them interact with you more, but just having that representation. And so again, and if you're someone going into medical school, I think it's important to have that relationship because again, medical school is hard. And it was that relationship that I had with that physician where I was able to call him when things did get hard for him to continue to push me. And so those relationships matter.
You know, that really reminds me of something when you talk about that, is that you have to be a friend before you need a friend. And so all these people that want to go to medical school, you need to be a friend in your community. Because there's going to be a time when you're on this process where something's going to get bumpy and you need to ask somebody for something. And you don't want the first time you speak to somebody is the first time you actually need to ask them for something. So we can talk about the resources and money, we can talk about the grades, but I'm talking about the human characteristics you need to go on a journey that's long, torturous, and exclusive. You need a village. That means you need to curate that. I told you my dad is an engineer and he's very bossy and pushy. And one of the things he insisted I do with these stupid informational interviews. He would call his friends that he golfed with that did whatever field, and I'd have to go and meet with them at their office and interview them and be interviewed by them. I thought it was the most absurd thing I'd ever been forced to do as a teenager. I was surly and I hated it. But looking back, to get into med school, what do you have to do? To get into fellowship and residency, what you got to do? So people pour into the way that they know how to pour into if you let them. And if you'd have asked me if I wanted to do them informational interviews at my teenage years, and that my father insisted I do, I didn't want to do those anymore than I wanted to do those Saturday morning math academies. But that gave me the soft skills to be effective in this very competitive admissions process. And again, it helped me talk to people before I actually needed them to help me. And so if it's joining SNMA pre-med chapters, if it's joining and being active with your local National Medical Association or American Medical Association chapter, that's ways that you are a friend before you need a friend.
And to echo that, that is very great information, because to echo what all of you guys said, the younger generation is growing up with so much internet, and they're losing the ability to actually interview and interact with people, and it's showing more rates of depression and just lacking in communication skills. So engaging with the community, I mentor children as well, high schoolers, and really expose them to what I do, and that I'm not a big scary person and very, very stark, and I'm just gonna cut you up like they see on Grey's Anatomy. But to make it more personable, that is TV, this is real life. So I definitely echo all of your sentiments. Our next question is about XOCOM. What resources can XOCOM offer when it opens? I'd like to hear from the founding dean, Dr. Sawani, as well as our XOCOM board member, Dr. Gillespie Bell.
Well, I think we talked about increasing the pool, so I think one of the things that XOCOM can do is it could be that North Star for many of our diverse communities. I mean, one of the beautiful things for us to have the honor and privilege to live in New Orleans is we live in a diverse community. We have diverse communities, and that's a strength. And what XOCOM can be is that North Star for our communities to say what we're talking about. You could be a doctor, and you could go to a medical school where you're welcomed, and we will support you. And it takes a village, and we will be there for you. And we've heard some stories about how other HBCU medical schools have done that. But there's other things we can do. We got to get to our high schools, get to our elementary schools, not just show that you can be it, but also really support those STEM programs, really bring up that math and science early in elementary school to increase the pool. The other thing we can do is create those pathways. So a lot of things that you've heard about today is pathways, the ability to shadow, getting a mentor, getting someone who's going to walk that journey with you and talk to you through the tough times, but also celebrate the great times, because I don't want you to think that med school is just a grind that is not fun and there's not great times. Med school is incredibly inspiring. You will be able to see things that you will never see again. You will meet people. You will have patients entrust their care to you, even though you're just a medical student. And so having that mentorship is something XOCOM can do, is building the faculty, because you heard the other statistic is that we need faculty in medical school that look like the communities they serve too. And so I think those are the resources, and there's one more big barrier I want to mention before I turn it over, and that's financial. And financial barrier is a real barrier, especially for first-generation college graduates and the likes. And so we need to be able to raise the money to offer the scholarships to address those financial barriers. And I think that's a big part of what XOCOM can do.
And I would say that XOCOM offers all of our students a unique training opportunity because of the two institutions that are coming together to make this school. We know, for all of us that have attended Xavier, that we are taught from day one, Xavier is a place where excellence is the rule, not the exception. And they build that into into your psyche. They build that into how they train you as a student there. I remember getting every semester those letters from Dr. Carmichael about what I needed to do to get into medical school, what my chances were, if I wanted to do pharmacy school, if I wanted to do dental, all of those things. I remember getting those letters, okay, now you need to be reading Newsweek cover to cover because you're going to go do interviews and you need to have something to talk about. They know how to build students to be excellent for the future that they want to achieve. And so that combined with Ochsner, and Ochsner has such exposure to such high-level physicians, like the ones that you see here on the stage, and exposure to subspecialties that other medical schools cannot offer. To see specialists in pediatric, I have someone that I met. I'm trying to get it right. She's a pediatric oncology orthopedic surgeon, so specialty on top of specialty on top of specialty. So that is exposure that our medical students will see to help them to figure out what careers they want to go in. And so, and also at Ochsner, we have a history of training medical students, of training residents. And so just to see the combination of these two institutions come together, I think it's going to offer students a unique training experience that will also be nurturing because of the culture that we've already talked about with Xavier.
You know, I really, really love to hear what's coming forward for us as a community. As a member of the community and past president of our local medical society, it's important that this partnership be with the community, not happen to the community. And I want to say it again, I want this to happen with the community and not to the community. When they built Harvard School of Public Health, it's adjacent to a Black historic neighborhood, and they desperately wanted it to have an address on Shattuck Street. So there's no windows on the side of that building that face that neighborhood. So even though that building sits there in a neighborhood serving kids that were historically disenfranchised, they didn't even want to look at them by the way that building was built. And so I want to say to the XOCOM partnership, don't build the building in a way that doesn't look upon those that you don't think need to be a part. Because you can't undo that structure now. We just have to explain it. And I think we have enough brilliance in this room, and we also have enough brilliance that's not in this room that need to be a part of the decision-making process.
That is powerful, Dr. Scholes. And I want to take this time to let everyone know that if you would like to donate to the formation of XOCOM, we have QR codes at the back. Any small donation, large donation helps. And I would also like to acknowledge Dr. Lauren Powell, who is the health equity leader here, for helping to form the XOCOM Medical School. So round of applause for Dr. Powell. Our last question. So first, before I get to that, thank you guys for all sharing all of your advice. My last question is, how do people that are interested in learning more about how to get into medical school and XOCOM get more information? I want to start with Dr. Scholas.
So I can't necessarily get you in on the XOCOM. I know a couple people that are really important there, and I can maybe do an informational interview with them. But I'm on all social media channels at Doc Mosho, DOCMOSHO, and I am here to engage. I want to demystify the process because of the old country boy from South Louisiana like me can go all the way up with them fancy people at Harvard. Well, good God, anything's possible. Dr. Lawson said we sent a man to the moon. Well, they sent a country boy to the ivory tower. And we can do that again. So reach out, connect, and talk. And my only ask is that mamas and daddies, don't be the helicopter bulldozer parents and do it for them. Let your kid talk to me and just tell them they know you. Let that child have their own voice. Let that child stand on their own feet. Let that child possibly get told yes and risk getting told no.
I am also available on social media channels, LinkedIn, and all of the regular social media channels. And I think, and Dr. Swanee will probably be able to speak to it better. We'll have more information on both the Ochsner and the Xavier websites about what the school, where the progress is with the school for development. Because as much as we have announced it and we are all excited, it's not opening tomorrow. And so there is an entire process where we have to get accreditation first before we can start accepting applicants. But we'll have more information on both of our websites.
I'm also available on LinkedIn. I'm not on Facebook. Never have, never will. My email address is brian.pettiford@ochsner.org. I have an open door policy. That's my way of paying it forward. Someone had an open door policy with me at one point in my life. And so we should never, ever, no matter what station in life we achieve, always remember we didn't get there overnight, okay? And so I'm always available. I have an open door policy. I want to say to the students, though, do your job so well that when that admissions committee gets together, be it medical school, residency, or fellowship, they're trying to figure out a way to get you to come to them. You don't want someone in there trying to make a plea on your behalf to get the people to bring you in. It should be a given.
I'm on LinkedIn too. I don't have any other social media. I'm just like you. Look, there's something very important that was said today. We talked a lot about STEM in elementary, but you've got to go to college before you go to med school. And just so happens, you have one of the best pre-med programs in the entire world right here in New Orleans at Xavier University of Louisiana. So I said the next step, if you want more information, let's start talking to Xavier about how do you get into Xavier and how do you get into their pre-med program. And Xavier University of Louisiana, you can go on their website, you can learn about their pre-med program, and then you can learn about XOCOM, as we'll be giving you updates. You can go on Ochsner's site too, and it'll have links to XOCOM. And when you get into undergrad, we have a program. It's called Oasis. Any Xavier pre-med student, any Loyola University of New Orleans pre-med student can attend. It's a month-long immersion. You get to shadow. We set it all up for you, so you don't have to, if you don't have those connections of that network, we'll do all that networking connections for you, get you with the right specialties, get you in the sim lab, get you meeting some medical students that are going through it right now, give you some MCAT advice on how to do the MCAT. So there's a lot of this that already exists, and I would say that Xavier undergraduate would be your door into a lot of this.
echoing the same sentiment. I'm a Xavier grad, and our pre-med department is bar none. Even for the students who do not matriculate into medical school the first time, it doesn't matter if you do it 5 years after you graduated, 10 years after you graduated. They will help collect all of your letters of recommendation and make that process very, very smooth. I'm a testament to that. And when you finish residency, they will find you, whatever state you're in, and they will send you a congratulations letter in a nice Xavier pre-med shirt. So it's a great resource. And also they have Upward Bound, they have SOAR, they have so many programs to engage the younger youth in middle school and high school. It's just a great opportunity. I'm also on all of the socials. TikTok I'm not great at, but Instagram at Dr. Nola Knows. I do accept shadowing students and expose them to what primary care is all about. As a proud family medicine physician, we see everything, and then we direct you to all of the wonderful specialists so you don't have to look up what a cardiothoracic surgeon is. So now I want to open up the floor to any questions that you guys may have for the panel. So, Dr. Verrett is coming back to the stage. Welcome, Dr. Verrett.
Well, thank you. Thank you, all of you, for being here. Could you give a special hand of applause to this exceptional panel? And the one thought that resonated in my mind as I listened to them was also that medical school is hard, but understand for every 7th graders, 8th grade seems impossible as well. So the talent, the ability among our young people is there and able to do it. And I'd like us to think about this as the fulfillment of a promise that began more than 100 years ago. Our commitment to a community to educate talent and to send talent to be of service to the world. Those students who graduate from XOCOM will benefit from getting their degrees as physicians. That's an individual benefit. But the real benefit is to everyone they go and touch. And that's what we're sending them to make that change. And I want you to thank these people for actually sharing with us what is possible and why it's possible. And remembering the one line from that physicians can be poets as well, that you are the village beneath, that is the wind beneath their wings. So remember that. So we are all committed to this effort. And I'm proud to see this day and what's coming on. Thank you, all of you. Thank you very much.
1, 2, 3, Let's go get 'em.
I can't get here, you know.
Let's go get 'em.
Whole world crumble.
Let's go get 'em.
Whole world crumble.
Let's go get 'em.
Chief on limbo now.
Let's go get 'em.
Say chief on limbo now.
Let's go get 'em.
Fire walk a mountain.
Let's go get 'em.
Drink from no fountain.
Let's go get 'em.
Till the well ran dry.
Let's go get 'em.
With the whole gang die.
Let's go get 'em.
There's no question.
Let's go get 'em.
They don't know why.
Let's go get 'em.
Our chief like better.
Let's go get 'em.
Carrying out together.
Let's go get 'em.
Dead for the mountain.
Let's go get 'em.
Dead for the boat.